In the early 2010s, a study examined how realistically psychopathy was portrayed in cinema. Conducted by Samuel Leistedt and his colleagues, the research analyzed hundreds of psychopathic characters from films through a psychopathology perspective. The findings showed that some portrayals were significantly closer to real-life clinical psychopathy than others. Today, we will count down these characters from 9 to 1, with 1 being the most realistic. Of course, psychopathy exists on a spectrum, and real cases vary widely. But these characters come closest to the clinical core identified by researchers. We have to mention that during the study, a top 3 was actually determined, while the others were only considered controversial. Let's start on number 9. Norman Bates from Psycho. The shower scene, the creepy motel, that twisted ending. Norman Bates became the blueprint for movie killers. But here's the twist. Scientists say he's not actually a psychopath at all. Wait, what? The guy who dresses up as his dead mother and murders people isn't a psychopath? Exactly. Because Norman suffers from psychosis and dissociative identity disorder. His mind literally splits into different people. Real psychopaths don't have split personalities. They have one personality, and it's perfectly aware of what it's doing. Norman hears voices. He loses touch with reality. A true psychopath never loses control like that. They're always in control, always calculating. Norman Bates is tragic. Moving to number 8. Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs. Brilliant, sophisticated, terrifying. He can read your mind just by looking at you. He's charming enough to make you forget he ate someone's liver with fava beans and a nice Chianti. But according to clinical standards, Hannibal doesn't make the top of the psychopath list either. Why? Because real psychopaths aren't usually that intelligent or that organized. Hannibal is almost superhuman in his abilities. He's theatrical. He kills with meaning and artistry. Clinical psychopaths are usually impulsive, disorganized. They don't build elaborate psychological traps. They act on urges. Hannibal is more like a fantasy, the Hollywood version of what we fear intelligence and evil could become together. He's terrifying, but he's not clinically accurate. Number 7 brings us to Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. The business card scene alone has become legendary. Patrick obsesses over fonts and paper texture while planning his next murder. He works on Wall Street. He wears designer suits. He follows an elaborate skincare routine. And he maybe, possibly, murders people. Or does he? That's the thing. American Psycho is satire. It's commentary on 80s excess and capitalism. Patrick Bateman is exaggerated on purpose. Real psychopaths don't monologue about their morning routine while dismembering someone. They don't carefully curate a perfect image while being completely unhinged. Bateman is cinematically stylized, a character designed to make us question reality itself. He's iconic, absolutely, but as a clinical case study, he's too theatrical, too self-aware, too deliberately constructed to reflect real psychopathy. At number 6, we meet Tramell from Basic Instinct. And here's where things get interesting. Female psychopaths are incredibly rare in cinema. In real life too, but especially in movies. Why? Because society expects women to be nurturing, emotional, connected. When a female character breaks that mold completely, it's shocking. Catherine is manipulative, seductive, and utterly remorseless. She plays people like instruments. She feels nothing. Studies have shown that female psychopaths often use sexuality and charm as weapons more than male psychopaths do. Catherine does exactly that. She's calm, calculated. Every move is strategic. Researchers have pointed to her as one of the few examples of female psychopathy done with some clinical accuracy, rare enough to deserve recognition on this list. Number 5 introduces Lou Bloom from Nightcrawler. If you haven't seen this film, picture someone who films car crashes and crimes, then sells the footage to news stations. Lou just orchestrates tragedy. He manipulates crime scenes. He lets people die for better shots. And the terrifying part? He looks normal. He talks about business strategy and success. He never seems angry or out of control. Psychology circles have noted Lou as a perfect example of high-functioning antisocial personality disorder. He has goals. He has ambition. He understands social rules well enough to mimic them. But inside, nothing. No empathy, no guilt, just cold calculation about how to get ahead. Lou represents the psychopath who succeeds in society, the one you'd never suspect because he's learned to perform humanity convincingly. At number 4, we find George Harvey from The Lovely Bones. He's a neighbor, ordinary-looking, quiet. He builds dollhouses, and he's a serial killer who preys on children. What makes George clinically significant is his presentation. He doesn't look dangerous. He doesn't act dangerous until he does. Clinical psychopathy often hides behind normalcy. These individuals blend in. They understand that standing out is dangerous. George has perfected the mask. He's patient. He experiences no remorse for his horrific crimes. Scientists describe him as exhibiting clear traces of clinical psychopathy: the calm demeanor, the predatory planning, the complete absence of empathy. He's the monster next door. And that's what makes him so disturbing. He could be anyone.
Open your eyes, Otis. Look at the world. It's either you or them. You know what I mean.
Number 3 takes us to Henry Lee Lucas in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. This one's rough. Henry is described by psychologists as a textbook psychopath. Emotionally deprived childhood, inability to form genuine connections, poor impulse control, lack of long-term planning. He drifts through life leaving bodies behind, feeling nothing. No grand plans, no theatrical moments, just emptiness expressing itself through violence. What makes Henry clinically important is how unglamorous it is. There's no genius, no charm, just a broken human being whose brain doesn't process empathy or consequence the way others do. And that absence, that void where feelings should be, that's what real psychopathy often looks like.
Nichts tue, wenn ich...
Number 2 brings us back to 1931. Hans Beckert from M. This film was made almost 100 years ago, but it captured something psychologists still study today. Hans is a child murderer. He's compelled by urges he claims he can't control. In the film's most powerful scene, he screams about the voices in his head, the torture of his own mind. Some researchers call him a pseudo-psychopath or sociopath, someone whose behavior mimics psychopathy, but whose internal experience might be different. He shows some distress about his actions, which pure psychopaths typically don't experience. But his ritualistic behavior, his targeting of vulnerable victims, his ability to appear ordinary, these are all clinically relevant markers. Hans Beckert showed cinema what a real predator looks like decades before we had the psychiatric language to fully describe it. And now, number 1, the most clinically accurate psychopath in cinema, according to scientists.
How'd you find that?
No, I'm not.
Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. Remember the coin toss scene? A man's life decided by chance. Anton shows zero emotion. He's not angry. He's not excited. He's completely neutral about whether this person lives or dies. That's the key. Anton exhibits what psychologists call primary psychopathy. No empathy whatsoever. No emotional response to violence. No remorse. No fear. He follows his own bizarre moral code with perfect consistency. But that code has nothing to do with human life or suffering. He's cold-blooded in the most literal sense. His heart rate probably doesn't even increase when he kills. To Anton, murder is a task, nothing more. Scientists point to him as the most accurate portrayal because he doesn't have the Hollywood additions. No tragic backstory that explains him, no moments of hidden humanity, no dramatic flair. Just pure, clinical absence of everything that makes us human. So here's what this list really reveals. True psychopaths aren't driven by anger. They're not insane. They're not even chaotic. They are emotionally absent. They understand rules, but don't feel bound by them. They simply act. Cinema often turns psychopathy into spectacle, but the most accurate portrayals are the least comforting because they feel disturbingly possible. Thank you for watching.